I'm Paul Mackey, and you're listening to the One Idjit's Thoughts On podcast. It's spring in Duluth, Minnesota, which naturally means there's plenty more snow to come. I've been continuing my habit of writing and playing trivia, and this month, my hosted episode of Frenemy and played episode will both drop. The hosted episode came first in time, but circumstances pushed it to follow the played episode, which is out now. TV Pledge is over at work, and radio's spring drive is just around the corner. I'll be on the air pitching a couple of times late in the drive, including my first time sharing the air with the friend of the show, Luke Moravec. So that's the news around here for now. Let's go back to the past and check out Seeing Things, Season 2, Episode 4, Through the Looking Glass, originally aired November 10th, 1982. That day of note, if you were looking at the news, you'd have seen the IMF loaned Mexico $3.8 billion to avert a bankruptcy for the country. Also of significance, Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev suffered a fatal heart attack. He had led the Soviet Union since 1964 and was succeeded by Yuri Andropov. I'm skipping the box office this time as my usual source is down, and my backup of choice shows that last week's numbers were this week's numbers. Possibly a mistake on my part, or perhaps my usual source wasn't as accurate as I hoped. So, on to the Canadian singles charts for the period ending November 13th, 1982. Number 5 was Up Where We Belong by Joe Cocker and Jennifer Barnes. Number 4 was Heart Attack by Olivia Newton-John. Number 3 was Gloria by Laura Branigan. Number 2, Down Under by Men at Work. And number 1 was The Look of Love by ABC. The top Maple certified single that week was New World Man by Rush, which dropped down to number 8. So what is it about? At an old-timers hockey game, a famous Danish player, Jan Nordstrom, helps commentate on the game from the booth above the ice when the glass of the booth gives way and he falls to his death. Louis is attending the game and sees Kenny Volker afterwards in the locker room, and Kenny is broken up but says that if Louis wants to do a favor, he should write about the window that was involved in the accident. Louis agrees to write about the faulty window. The primary commentator said he'd hit his head on that same glass and it hurt like hell, so it was solid. Sergeant Brown says it was an accident, but Louis says murder. He goes back to get a look at Jan's room, as Volker was his roomie as well as his teammate. Kenny doesn't believe that it could have been a murder, but when they get to the apartment, the place has been tossed. Kenny says that things come in threes and mentions a car accident with Jan's old car having brake failure the same day that Jan died. I keep saying Jan or Jan. Get over it. Louis and his dad determine that those brakes were cut. He talks to Foxy Barrington, the player's agent who discovered Jan in Denmark. Foxy claims Jan was an addict and the team doctor was the supplier. The doctor tells him he's crazy, and when Louis checks out the locker room facilities, someone locks him in the sauna and turns the heat to dangerous levels. He accuses the doc, but the doc has a solid alibi. Louis finds Redfern and Volker at the apartment eating Jan's favorite childhood dish made of onions and potatoes, and Louis tries some. Redfern has found speed in the medicine cabinet. It looks like Jan might have actually been on speed. Louis has horrible onion breath and goes to Max in the test kitchen, who gives him parsley to help out. And when Louis describes the dish, Max says it's Russian, not Danish, and produces a cookbook to prove it. Then Louis has a vision that shows Jan learning from Cyrillic textbooks in a classroom with a Soviet flag. He talks to Volker about it in his car and puts a cassette in that Jan had borrowed, only it was a Russian speaking and not Slim Whitman. Louis goes to investigate Foxy Barrington's office, but Foxy catches him, and then after setting a driverless Zamboni after Louis, he holds him at gunpoint and tells the part of the story we don't know. Jan was a courier, Russian by birth, but he fell in love with Canada and decided to leave the spy courier game, so Foxy killed him. Louis is saved by Volker, knocking Foxy out via slapshot. So what made him see it? When Louis looks at Jan's locker, he sees the schoolroom for the first time. The Soviet flag is only in a flash, but I think I spotted it then. He then sees it again while looking at Jan's room, longer. Then finally, when Max proves the recipe was Russian, he sees the Cyrillic textbooks and the Soviet flag. My favorite line...
They took my Sony Trinitron. my Atari video systems, my Macintosh stereo, my Nikon camera with all the lenses. The creeps even took my Cuisinart.
Yeah, I'd like to report a burglary. 247 York Mews, apartment 252. 252. I don't know, a lot of important brand names, yeah. Right. Okay, thank you.
For some reason, they'd run through all of the early 80s brand names when Kenny finds the apartment in disarray. I suppose this also counts as my totally 80s for the episode. Who is James B. Douglas? When I heard Foxy speaking, the voice sounded very familiar to me, and the reason became clear while I was looking at him on IMDb. I'll let you know right off the top, he played Donald Foley, the patriarch whose death is the jumping-off point for the greatest curling comedy movie ever made, Men with Brooms, which I covered along with Ben Pfeiffer, Amy Bowen, and my lovely wife Darcy between Season 2 and 3 of the Ghostlight podcast. James Douglas was born in 1929 in South Africa, but his family moved to Canada in his youth. He attended Amherst College and graduated in 1951, having gained lots of knowledge and experience acting and directing. His early acting experience included extensive work with the Bristol Old Vic, along with London's West End and extensive touring in the UK. Back in North America, he appeared on the Doris Day Show and in uncredited roles in the Altman film MASH and in Tora Tora Tora. He appeared in lots of Canadian TV, along with Seeing Things, shows like The Littlest Hobo, The Edison Twins, Rin Tin Tin, Canine Cop, and Avonlea. But one of his biggest professional pursuits was the theater. He appeared at the Folger Shakespeare Theater in Washington, D.C., San Diego Shakespeare Festival, and many times at the Stratford Festival. He was a co-founder of Toronto's Tarragon Theatre. James B. Douglas passed away in Stratford, Ontario in 2009. Artifactoids, I spotted a unique building right in the opening shots of this episode, an inverted pyramid design. I googled Toronto inverted pyramid and found that this is 222 Jarvis Street. The building is 10 stories and was designed in the brutalist style by architect Maxwell Miller. It was completed in 1971 as the headquarters of Sears Canada, complete with warehouse space in an adjoining building. Sears Canada occupied the building through 2007. The warehouse space was converted to loft apartments, while the main office building was chosen by the provincial government as a model for energy-efficient retrofitting of older buildings. The building today houses 4 provincial government ministries. One thing I found interesting about the scene in the show itself is the place that Marge is dropping them off appears to be roughly the outside of a facility known as the Terrace, which was formerly the Mutual Street Arena, the first home of the Maple Leafs. They're taking out ice skates, but according to the first information that I found, when the arena was converted in 1962, it featured curling ice and a roller rink. But then later on, I found information that they had the roller rink on the main floor, but on the upper floor they also had an ice rink along with the curling rinks. As a side note, since I brought it up, the Terrace remained as a curling and roller skate venue until 1989, when it was demolished for residential housing and a city park. The original name of the Mutual Street Arena was Arena Gardens, so it is somewhat fitting that the city park now on part of that site is named Arena Gardens. What worked? I thought they did a good job of presenting various suspects and also had Foxy set Louis up with false leads and the allegation of drug use that he followed up by planting the meth pills. The Zamboni peril had me giggling and thinking of Deadpool, but I think it was amusing by itself. What didn't? Well, maybe it's all the plot lines I recently reviewed on WizKids, but the Russians? I know it was the early 80s, and I remember the Cold War a bit too vividly. The Russians were always the bad guys in action shows, and of course, at the time we didn't blink an eye when it was the Russians again. So next time, for Seeing Things, is Season 2, Episode 5, Eyes Too Big for His Stomach. But coming up next in this recording is Press Gang, Series 1, Episode 7, How to Make a Killing, Part 1, after some contemporary commercial spots.
No matter what we tell you we carry, whenever we say Canadian Tire, you think we've got the biggest names in sporting goods, but when we say Canadian Tire, you think we've got a huge selection of brand name tools and hardware, but we say Canadian Tire and... So now, after seeing all this, when I say Canadian Tire, what do you think? Now you got it.
There's a lot more to Canadian Tire than tires.
We've always chosen only the best natural ingredients for Dolmio, but tastes vary. So now we also make Dolmio with extra fresh garlic, extra garden herbs, and extra chunky vegetables. So whatever your taste, there's a lot more to Dolmio.
So first up there was a commercial for Canadian Tire, and it really explains away the confusion that I had about the chain growing up. Then, more contemporary with Press Gang, there was Dolmio Pasta Sauce, which a quick Google search assured me remains an available brand in the UK to this day. So Press Gang, Series 1, Episode 7, How to Make a Killing, Part 1, originally aired February 27th, 1989. That day of note, in the Netherlands, the last two members of the Breed of Four, the only 4 Nazis imprisoned in that country after the war, were released from prison, though the decision was met with protests. Both men died before the year was out. On the UK music charts for the week ending March 4th, 1989, number 5 was a cover of the Beatles' Help by Bananarama. Number 4 was Stop by Sam Brown. Number 3 was Love Changes Everything by Michael Ball. Number 2 was Leave Me Alone by Michael Jackson, and number 1 continued to be Belfast Child by Simple Minds. On the Billboard Modern Rock chart for the week ending March 4th, number 5 was Violent Femmes with Nightmares. Number 4 was The Mayor of Simpleton by XTC. Number 3 was Veronica by Elvis Costello. Number 2 was I'll Be You by The Replacements, and sticking at number 1 was Dirty Boulevard by Lou Reed. Brief summary. Kenny takes note of a girl drawing a chalk outline of a body every month outside an apartment building and begins to investigate. But he gets stonewalled by Chrissy, the reporter who helps with the Junior Gazette and happened to cover the accidental falling death of the boy at that apartment block. The outline appears to be pointing at a shop across the way, but the shop owner won't speak with him either. He contrives a bag swap at a train station so he can get the girl's phone number and talk with her. They talk with the witness, and he says that the body fell as he was on the stairs because the elevator smelled horribly of cleaners. Kenny has an inspiration from this fact and leaves the office saying that the boy didn't fall, he flew. And my favorite line...
He's really got the bug for this one.
Well, she looks like she's worth getting the bug for.
I rather doubt that's the reason, actually, Spike.
Oh, well, you don't have to be jealous of a girl I've never even met, do you?
Of course I'm jealous, Spike. I wish I was a girl you'd never even met.
There were other jokes in this episode that were a bit darker about the death by falling, but they didn't land as well. Who is Sadie Frost in the role of Jenny Elliott? Sadie has worked as an actress, producer, director, and fashion designer. She was born in Islington in 1960 to an actress mother and psychedelic artist father, though their marriage did not last. Sadie studied performance from age 11 at Italia Conti Academy, where she was a couple years behind Julia Swala, but they would have been studying concurrently. She did leave the academy to return to regular schooling following a boy she liked. She was 16 in 1981 and met her eventual husband Gary Kemp while she was dancing in a Spandau Ballet video. Kemp was lead guitar and songwriter for Spandau Ballet. They married in 1988. Sadie was 25 when she appeared in these episodes of Press Gang. She had a role in The Krays in 1990, and in 1992 she played the role I otherwise knew her for, Lucy, in Bram Stoker's Dracula. She also has credits in A Pyromaniac's Love Story, The Anniversary Party, Absolutely Fabulous, the movie, and Geek Girl. Most recently, she directed the documentary Twiggy about the model. In her personal life, after her divorce from Gary Kemp, she married Jude Law, who she met acting in the film Shopping. They were married 5 years and had 3 children. Most recently, she acted in a film called The Chelsea Cowboy with Press Gang's Charlie Creed Miles, which is currently listed in post-production. Artifactoids. I know last time was already a tech episode, but I spotted something that I owned, so I figured I'd take a quick look. Billy is back in this episode, and he's got his Mac and associated equipment in the newsroom. I pointed out the Mac SE last episode, which makes another appearance here. Billy also has a printer, and while it's not obvious, I'm pretty sure it's an image writer too. We had an Apple IIgs at our house, but the nice thing about the image writer 2 was that Apple designed it to be cross-compatible across all the product lines they had. This would be the second revision to ImageWriter 2, originally released in 1986 with coloring to match the 2GS's so-called platinum color scheme. The Mac SE was also in this color. It was a dot matrix printer, so it was loud. The ImageWriter line began in 1983, intended to be used with the Apple II series, but compatible across all product lines. The original ImageWriter printed at a speed of 1 to 2 pages per minute. The ImageWriter 2 was first introduced in 1985 and had an improved speed of 2 to 6 pages per minute. Though some users felt the general quality of the printer had reduced, with the printers being made of lighter and less sturdy plastics. The printer did weigh only 15 pounds in its second and third revisions, down from 25 pounds in the first revision, and 19 pounds of the original ImageWriter. It had a print resolution of 160 by 144 dpi. It could be fitted with a black ribbon or a 4-color ribbon that could be used to print a larger number of colors via dithering. I found an ad from Zimco International from 1989 selling the ImageWriter 2 for $465, which is roughly $1,250 in today's dollars. In 1987, Apple also released the ImageWriter LQ with higher print quality, but the printer in this episode is definitely an ImageWriter 2 based on the side profile seen and the position of the feed knob. So what worked? I liked that Kennedy was confronted with the reality of being a journalist reporting impartially, and the conflict with the humanity when you know someone involved in the story. Despite what I later say here didn't work, I think it did a decent job cliffhangering for the next episode. What didn't work? It definitely felt like half a story, and since I already know where it goes next, I feel like it's lacking. I do not recall my first impression, so I honestly can't judge it as a single episode. Next time is Press Gang Series 1, Episode 8, How to Make a Killing Part 2. Happy hunting! You've been listening to the One Idjit's Thoughts On podcast, produced by Paul Mackey in association with Nimlas Studios. Any short clips of audio from shows is included under fair use for commentary purposes, and copyright for that content remains with its original copyright holders. The theme song is Too Good by Jack Mangan and is used by his generous permission. One Idjit's Thoughts is produced under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. You can find more episodes of this podcast and many other fine podcasts at nimlas.org. You can contact me by emailing idjitcastpodcast@gmail.com or commenting on episodes at nimlas.org. Because the darker jokes about the falling death didn't land right. Get it?